Yeah, the General Secretary of the National Inter-Platform Stroke People Power, that is David Lewis.From, is painting for you a picture how our agents across the country were treated, how they were arrested, how the situation was on the 14th of January 2021 when the ballot stuffing, vote rigging was going on. So, this comes after Museveni apologists, the propagandists, of course, are coming out to justify the brutality, the torture, the illegal arrest, the ballot stuffing, and all the irregularities that happened on the 14th of January 2021 when Ugandans were voting for Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert. So these guys come on national TVs, they, radios to, confuse the masses. So here is the General Secretary. Remember, he's a lawyer, he's a lecturer. He's saying that every time after elections, there are regime apologists ready to explain why the opposition did not win the election. He continues to say that the paid spin masters will always claim that the opposition did not win genuinely, and suggests that the forces of change needed to use the next 5 years organizing so that to stand better chance in the next election. I have heard them previously claim that the opposition doesn't win because they have no agents to collect the DR forms, or that the opposition has no structures countrywide, etc. The intention is of necessity to explain away the absurd levels of rigging and give some sense of hope that if you organize better next time, you can beat Museveni in an election organized by the likes of Mr. Byabakama. Sadly, these narratives are often bought by intelligent people who in turn try to sell them to the population. To debunk these narratives, in this election we deployed polling agents in more than 95% of all polling stations in the country. Even in places like Karamoja, Chiruhura, Kazi, etc., which are dreaded, we had identified agents. Through the general support of Ugandans here and abroad, we facilitated the vast majority of them. But what did the regime do? The day before the election, there were sweeping operations in several districts where supervisors of constituencies were arrested. People who were found distributing appointment letters for polling agents in Masaka, Lila, Chiruhura, Isingiro, Bundibujo, etc. were rounded up and the appointment letters confiscated. In Ilango, Karamoja, Kigezi, etc., the regional supervisors themselves were picked up and arrested. The intention was to frustrate the coordination efforts. In Moroto, the team was released at midday after the ballot stuffing had been accomplished. Other comrades who had gone there as supervisors had been kept for 3 days, only to be released with instructions not to set foot in Karamoja again. During interrogation, they were asked where the U-vote servers were, and told that if they did not disclose this information, they would be charged with the offenses related to recruitment of rebels. In Lila, some of the arrested were released at 8 p.m. and others on the following day. Of course, with an internet shutdown coupled with a suppressed press, it was impossible to relay this information. Once people were in the dark, the operatives had a field day executing their sinister plans. They then descended on polling agents. Very many were arrested and detained. In places like Muwonge, our polling agents had to choose between money and jail. Those who refused to be bought off were arrested. On election day, we were overwhelmed by phone calls of NUP and opposition agents being sent away from polling stations or simply arrested. They would come and ask one to identify himself or herself. Once you showed them your appointment letter, they would immediately confiscate it and tell you that you no longer had a job to do at the station. Any hesitation would earn these comrades slaps and arrest or both. As the fraud went on, the places where some agents tried to raise questions, they were treated with so much violence. In Isingiro, one of them was nearly killed. They aimed for his neck, but the panga got his arm, which had quickly put up in defense. He is on the run. His crime was running away with a set of predicted ballot papers and trying to object to whatever was going on. In some cases, people who were not our polling agents were assigned to sign on the DR forms as our agents by presiding officers who should be independent in their work. Indeed, if you look at some of the DR forms with the grave anomalies, you will see that some strange people signed as our agents. But even with this state of affairs, in several districts we were able to have polling agents and we were able to collect the biggest number of DR forms in the recent history. Then the regime's target quickly moved to the corrected DR forms. In the districts of Isingiro, Rubirizi, Bundibujo, etc., operatives were laid our people and took away the forms. Then they went for those which made their way to Kampala. Between 15th and 20th January, several operations were made targeting people who were thought to have the forms. Those who were found in possession of the forms were either charged with threatening violence, spreading COVID-19, or altering electoral materials. It is therefore absurd to hear anyone say that the opposition doesn't win because they don't deploy polling agents and such other narratives. This is my hope and conviction. Freedom will come to Uganda. Arrest Museveni now. So that has been the article or the explanation from our General Secretary, the General Secretary of the National Unity Platform or People Power. When we go to Karamoja, actually a district or a region he has highlighted mostly, our agent that side, actually the leader, the gentleman who was leading the team of agents that side, who was actually assigned to take on districts like Kabong, Abimu, Kalenga, and others, that is Mosh. You know, these guys come out and say all these narratives, all these words, of course, to hoodwink the public, to paint a picture that NUP was nowhere and all that kind of thing. So here is the gentleman as well giving you or painting for you a picture what happened in Karamoja before, during, and after the election. Moshi is saying that NRM propagandists are spreading rumors that NUP, my party, never had agents in Karamoja sub-region during the presidential elections. I want to share my experience and challenge the mafia regime. On 16th December, I pitched camp first in the 4 districts of northern Karamoja, including Kotido, Abimu, Kabongo, and Kalenga. My assignment was to make sure we strengthen NUP party structures in the region, as well as to identify at least 2 agents per polling station. Kotido had 153 polling stations, Kabong 129, Abimu 105, Kalenga 53. In the space of a week, despite harsh crackdown by security forces, especially commanded by RDCs, the regional district commanders and ISOs, I had accomplished the task. The same was happening in other parts of the country. So by this, he's saying the same was happening in other parts of the country. What does he mean? He's saying other comrades, foot soldiers, were also deployed, because I talked to him personally, Mosh, and he told me of the friends that were being sent to various regions, and I kept on, calling them. Actually, even on the 14th, you remember when I was calling Sauda and those others. So the same comrades were sent to other regions, like in western Uganda, in eastern Uganda, northern Uganda, but of course something like that happened. Okay, Mosh continues to say that when the intelligence community learned of our achievements, hunting resumed. Many of our agents were threatened. Our registrars had coordinators were squeezed to an extent that some were forced to denounce the party. Our parliamentary candidates were compromised to an extent that some worked with the regime operatives to hunt for us. We barely spent a night in the same location. We persevered till polling day. On the 13th January, the regime went in override. Arrests and intimidation were a notch higher. I survived arrest in Moroto and Kotido while distributing election materials. I had to hide in the thickets more than thrice. In some constituencies, money for agents was confiscated by security operatives, and sadly, we couldn't report to anyone. Basically, you feel totally helpless. Withstanding such persecution, we reached polling day as early as 5 a.m. Many agents were calling in with reports of life-threatening intimidation in case they dared to work as polling agents for Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu aka Bobiwine. We encouraged them to be brave, and many did the task heroically. Some managed to confront General Kara, who was nabbed with pre-ticked ballots in Kotido town. However, the drama ensued in the evening at the time of collecting DRR forms. Many of our agents were forced and others tricked to sign them without reading the contents. Many were denied copies of the forms. It was a state of quagmire in general. We thank God that we persevered and secured most of the DRR forms from the region. From my observation, the region is far behind as far as information flow is concerned. At some polling stations, invalid votes were more than valid votes. Invalid votes also depended on who the voter intended to tick. Basically, it beats my understanding why a sane person would associate with an evil gang. There is no way NRM can rule Uganda without unleashing brutality and ruthlessness. I saw and I experienced and learned for God and my country. Kyagulanyi, my president, we are removing a dictator. That has been a highlight for Mosh, who was tasked to, manage those districts in Karamoja sub-region. Whatever you've heard from the General Secretary, then Mosh, all that brutality, all the arrests, all the torture, and all that kind of thing was done in the dark. That is from the 13th onwards, because internet was shut down on the 13th, and then it was restored 5 days later. So all the atrocities, all the ballot stuffing, all the rigging, all the arrests of our NUP agents, all the confiscation of the appointment letters, declaration forms, and all that kind of thing, all that was done in the dark. Remember, internet was shut down, social media was off, so there is no way information could flow. And places like Karamoja, it is too far. There are issues with information flow. During the COVID-19, when it had just come, that is early 2020, when the government was trying to find solutions for kids to learn from home, they came up with this program of giving each house a radio set, and then you could hear reactions from people saying that for us here, we do not actually get signals of Uganda, we get signals of Kenya. Those are people in the extreme northeast, people in the extreme north, and all that kind of thing. So you can see that once you cut off social media, once you cut off internet, it does not benefit the common man, it benefits the dictator, because he doesn't want information to flow. So all these atrocities, the arrests, the tortures, they were done in the dark. They were done in the dark. But good enough, the world has got to know the real Museveni, because up to now, not more than 5 presidents congratulated him. It's on Russia, then Burundi, even Rwanda, and then Tanzania. Uhuru Kenyatta deleted the message he had wrote to congratulate him. Of course, people backfired and tried to put sense back in his head, and he deleted the message. So you can see that the entire world got to know how the vote was just a mockery. The election was just a mockery. It wasn't an election before, during, and after. And as I speak now, guys, the temperature is still very hot. It's not business as usual. Just a few days ago, the regime hacked into the official NUP Facebook page and they wrote a concession letter. I give you that update. So they know they are carrying a very, very heavy burden of guilt. They know they robbed Ugandans of their, will. But guess what? Unless the will of Ugandans is respected, this situation is not going to normalize, because you can't rule people on a gunpoint. So for those who did not know how the situation was, because not each and everything has come out. Remember, social media is still disconnected. So that's how the situation was on the 14th, actually even before and then after 14th. So that's what I had for you guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for always checking us here. Peace and love.